The sun was barely up when Denzel stepped onto the patio of his Los Angeles home. Coffee in hand, barefoot, Bible resting face down beside him. It was his ritual, silence before the noise. At 69, he didn't chase the world. He let it come, to him. This time, it came in the form of an email from his assistant, forwarded with a subject line he didn't expect. Urgent, visa denied, Maluba. He read the letter twice. The words didn't change. We regret to inform you that your visa to enter Maluba has been denied due to concerns regarding potential religious influence, which may contradict state cultural policies. He sat back. Still. Calm. But something inside shifted. He wasn't going for politics. He wasn't going to preach. He was going to visit schools, to check on clinics his foundation helped fund, to show up, like he always did. He called his assistant. Is this real? It came straight from their immigration office. And they didn't give any other reason. No, sir. Just that line. Religious influence. He thanked her and hung up. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't call his publicist. Didn't go live on Instagram. He just stared at the screen for a long, quiet minute. Because this wasn't about ego. It wasn't even about him. It was about what it meant to be told. Your faith is a threat. And deep down, Denzel knew this wasn't just a visa issue. This was the start of something much bigger. By the next morning, the letter was no longer private. Someone inside the Maluba immigration office had leaked a screenshot, stamped, dated, with Denzel's name in bold at the top. It landed in the inbox of an independent journalist in Johannesburg who tweeted it with a single word. Why? The tweet went viral in less than 3 hours. News outlets from London to Lagos picked it up. Some headlines were calm, questioning. Others weren't. Denzel Washington banned from Africa due to Christian beliefs. Actor's faith sparks diplomatic controversy. Hollywood meets religious censorship. At first, Denzel stayed silent. He didn't have social media, no blue check, no digital voice to clarify, deny, or defend. That was intentional. He'd never liked the noise. He trusted the truth to carry its own weight. Eventually, but as pressure mounted, friends began calling. Denzel, you need to say something. You can't let them twist this. This isn't just about you anymore. He listened, thought carefully, then replied softly. What's louder? A statement, or how I choose to move? His foundation quietly released a note. Mr. Washington's planned visit to Maluba was strictly humanitarian in nature, with no religious agenda. We remain committed to supporting the region's development through education, healthcare, and opportunity. It didn't stop the speculation. But something unexpected happened. Churches began reading his quote on Sundays. Faith leaders started using the moment as a lesson, not in persecution, but in posture. And for Denzel, that was the real message. Let the world react. He would remain still. The dining table in Denzel's home was long, wooden, worn in just the right places. It wasn't for show. It was where decisions were made. With family, with prayer, with honesty. That's where he sat now, flanked by his wife Pauletta and their 2 oldest children, who had come over after the news exploded. Why Maluba? His son asked. Denzel sipped water before answering. Because they asked for help, and I wanted to show up in person. Not as a celebrity, as a man. His daughter leaned forward. And now they're saying your faith is dangerous, he nodded. Not directly, but that's the message under the message. Outside the windows, California glowed golden, but inside the house, it was quiet, heavy. The conversation turned to something deeper. Not just a country denying access, but the world redefining tolerance. Pauletta broke the silence. You've always said God opens the doors that matter. Maybe this one wasn't meant to open. Denzel nodded. Maybe. Or maybe it's not about the door at all. Maybe it's about how we stand in front of it. He rose from the table and walked toward his office. On the wall was a framed quote from his father, "Don't preach louder than you live." He stared at it for a long time. In the next room, his phone buzzed again. CNN, BBC, and now a live invitation from a major international news network. He didn't answer. Not yet, because this wasn't just about public perception. It was about legacy, about what a man chooses to do when told he doesn't belong, not because of crime, not because of danger, but because of what he believes. Denzel wasn't ready to make noise, he was preparing to make impact. The following Monday, a large church in Atlanta held a press conference on Denzel's behalf. Uninvited, unrequested. The headline behind the podium read, "Faith is not a threat." Pastors from 4 states attended. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder. A live stream ran on 3 major platforms, but Denzel wasn't there. He watched from home, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "They built a stage," Pauletta said softly, walking into the room. He nodded. "But not every stage needs me on it." Social media boiled with opinions. Some praised him for staying calm. Others criticized him for not speaking louder. Activists asked for clarity. Faith groups begged for leadership. Even celebrities started weighing in. A well-known actor tweeted, "If Denzel stays silent, they win." Another replied, "He's not silent, he's listening." Big difference. But the noise kept rising. That evening, his assistant entered the room with a printed envelope. "It's from Maluba's Ministry of Culture, hand-delivered through their UN office." He opened it slowly. It wasn't an apology, not quite, but it was something, a reconsideration. The government had seen the global reaction. They now offered a limited entry visa, strictly under the condition that he refrained from public speeches or religious commentary while in the country. It was a compromise, a chance to complete the mission, but at the cost of something deeper. His name, his voice, his beliefs. He folded the letter and set it aside, then turned to Pauletta and said, "I didn't come this far to whisper." That night, he prayed longer than usual, and when he finished, he knew. He had a choice, and the world would hear it soon. The press was expecting a statement. His team was expecting a decision. Maluba was waiting for a yes or no. But Denzel Washington didn't rush. He prayed. He sat alone. He reread the letter 3 times, the part that said he could enter the country, as long as he left his faith at the door, and that was the line he couldn't cross. The next morning, he called a private meeting with his foundation board. 8 people sat around a long table, notebooks open, phones off. "I'm not going," he said. They were silent. "I won't accept a version of myself that makes them more comfortable. If they can only welcome my hands but not my heart, then we're not partners, we're props." "But the children," one board member began. Denzel raised a hand. "We're not stopping the work, we'll expand it, fund it stronger, bring in new teams. But I won't set a precedent that says, beliefs are baggage." They all nodded, one by one. That afternoon, he released a statement to the press. "I love Africa. I love Maluba. I've given quietly. I've shown up quietly. But I cannot separate who I am from what I do. If my faith disqualifies me, so be it. I'll serve from wherever I'm allowed to stand. But I will not shrink to fit a narrative that makes others feel safe. I wish them peace. I will pray for their leadership. And I will not stop the work." The statement exploded. TV hosts read it live. Religious leaders quoted it in sermons. Journalists, even the harsh ones, admitted it was powerful, not loud, not angry, just clear. Denzel didn't burn the bridge. He just refused to cross it on their terms. And in doing so, he built something stronger: conviction. 3 months later, the Maluba story was no longer in headlines. The world had moved on, as it always does. But something lingered. Quiet. Deep. In a small rural school on the edge of Maluba's northern border, a chalkboard had been replaced. The old one was cracked and barely usable. The new one came with a shipment of supplies, Books, uniforms, even solar panels. No cameras, no signatures. Just one note tucked inside a box of pencils. Don't let the world decide who you're allowed to become. D.W., the teacher, didn't know much about Hollywood, but she read that line to her students before class. One girl, 12 years old, raised her hand and asked, "Is he a preacher?" The teacher smiled. "No, he's an actor." The girl thought for a moment. "Then why did he say that?" "Because," the teacher replied, "he believes it." Back in Los Angeles, Denzel sat on a bench overlooking the ocean. Same Bible, same posture, same silence. But something inside him felt lighter. He hadn't forced change. He hadn't rallied the masses. He had simply stood still and let the truth rise around him. His foundation had grown. 3 new countries had reached out. He was no longer invited to Maluba, but his work was there. Quietly. And maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Pauletta joined him on the bench, holding a letter from a student in Nairobi. "Thank you for not bending, because now I know I don't have to either." He read it, folded it, and tucked it into the pages of his Bible. Some people speak from stages, others from silence. Denzel Washington had spoken by standing still. And in doing so, he reminded the world, sometimes the loudest thing you can do is refuse to whisper.